Hi everyone, today we're on a little journey to some of the most famous Norwegian fjords, which is called Flåm. It's 3 hours drive from the place I live. The road lays high in the mountains and it is the middle of the March and there's still everything white there, whilst everything on the ground is already melted. So the road was kind of crazy with lots of big turns like this mountain serpentine, but I'm glad my friend is a good driver. So the highest point we were crossing at the roads was like 1,200 meters. This was a beautiful place in the mountains where you see there is no snow and lots of sun, and also we had to cross the longest tunnel in the whole world. It is 24.5 kilometers and it had some interesting illuminations like this one. So there's only 3 of them. 2 of them are blue like this one, and one of them is just like greenish like a coral reef. There is actually crazy amount of tunnels we had to cross. So while going there we crossed like 3 tunnels, and one of them was the longest in the world, which took 20 minutes to drive through. And when we were going back we crossed like 8 smaller tunnels because we chose a different road to go to. So here you see this is the beginning of this fjord, which is called Flåm. It's really beautiful. Actually, I live in just 20 minutes drive from a place that looks very much like this, but it can't be technically considered as a fjord because the water there isn't salty. So this one was the actual first technically right fjord I visited. The mountains around the place are crazy high and the water is really beautiful, like it's different color from what I'm used to. It's pretty much transparent and has this greenish blue ultramarine shade about it. So I really wanted to try the water because I was wondering how does it taste like, because in Norway you can pretty much taste and drink any water you see. So I was disappointed because it wasn't salty at all. Like it had some sort of marine aftertaste after it, but it turns out that water from the sea, which is coming to this fjord, is actually mixed with the local water from the river, and that's why it doesn't taste salty at all. And it wasn't any salt in the air, like this fresh breeze when you're around the seaside and you can smell this iod and salt in the air. There was nothing about it, even though the wind was crazy. We actually were there when the weather was terrible, and it was sunny, but the wind was ice cold and we frozen our arms and faces. So the Flåm town is pretty much small, like almost all the towns in Norway. It has some charm about it. It has mountains, it has some open water. Of course it has some stores for the tourists, but everything there was made of plastic and I don't invest in plastic. Then we decided to make our way to some of the most beautiful trail roads in the world. Like there's actually this train, but it was closed because it's not tourist season yet, and the road there was crazy. I mean, look at this. I was so scared to look down. It was so high in the mountains, and the road is very narrow, like most of the mountain roads in Norway. And if you meet another car, it's gonna be pretty scary. We only met one, I think, and thank God our driver had a very good reaction. I was very surprised to meet 2 of American tourists there. Then we saw this beautiful, huge waterfall and decided to stop by and grill the meat we took with us. So Norwegians usually just grill sausages, but as Ukrainians we took our old tradition to just grill the marinated meat, and it was so amazing. It was the first time I grilled the meat in like 2 years, and I honestly felt so safe and like I was in a big family and like I was home. And oh, I almost cried actually. The views there were unbelievable and it made me happy again that I have the opportunity to go and see Norway. As for a person with autistic disorder, I find it very hard to get out of my house, and I actually have no desire to, but my friends, they are neurotypical, so they dragged me everywhere with them, and I'm so grateful because I wouldn't otherwise I would never seen that. And yes, one of my fixations is Hannibal series, and while looking at this beautiful canyon, I was thinking about how amazing would it be to jump off that cliff with somebody your soul longs for. We started the fire, and as I had some free time, I jumped around the suburbs to look and explore. So I found this little park with climbing thing. Everything there was very nice and made out of tree, and I didn't risk to hang on this thing because it was not that solid, and the views there, oh my god. And then we grilled our beautiful meat. Oh, it was unbelievably tasty, and my compliments to the chef. I was so happy. So at this lovely little cabin there was a jar with your wishes, and I wrote a wish there. And also I wrote a message like wishing everyone a very pleasant stay. Love, Hannibal. Of course I would write this. Yes, it's so me core. And then we had to get into the car and drive home. I was a bit sorry that I couldn't grasp and gasp all this beauty, because it would take me so much time to actually sit there, ground, and kind of catch the moment. I actually, on the other side, wanted to go home and just hide in my bed and sleep. As we were driving home, my friend's husband said that we should actually go and see a nice place in the mountains where a beautiful view would open, and I'm so grateful we went there and actually saw it, because I think I'll remember this moment my whole life. It was around 20 minutes drive to get up that mountain, and the road was again crazy with those turns, and thank goodness I wasn't driving there, because for me it's just a stress to be concentrated for more than 30 minutes, and I would have never in my life managed to go there alone. There were small waterfalls everywhere and lots of ice. It was quite dangerous to drive around them because the sun came up and they were melting all the way, and some of them could have fallen onto the top of the car, but luckily it didn't happen. The internet wasn't working so high in the mountains, so we were just following this little black bus that was driving the tourists up to the same place we were going to. And again, there were these crazy turns on the road. The further we were driving, the more beautiful the views were becoming, and it turned out the fjord looks even better when looking at it at the highest point in the city. So it was totally worth going so much up. The view took my breath away. I literally stopped there and stared. I couldn't believe this was real, and the wind was heavy. I've frozen my hands while trying to film this, and I left my name there just to remind myself that it was real and it wasn't in my dreams. The road back was absolutely amazing, and I disturbed my mom when she got sad that I didn't take her with us, because there was actually no place in the car, but she was so sorry she couldn't go there, and I think I'm gonna drive her there one day, but maybe when I practice driving some more, because this road and 3 hours of concentrating. I was thinking about how lucky were the people who live there to look at such beauty every day, but also how unfortunate they were because it's so far away from civilization, and they would have to drive up to 20 minutes just to go to a grocery store and get some foods, and when the weather was cold and the roads were icy, that would be a terrible thing to imagine. So when going back, we also visited a few tunnels with this other road, and some of the tunnels were really interesting, like this one, because the lighting was on the right side and not at the top. This next tunnel was very narrow and one-sided, that's why there was a traffic light on it, which means that you can drive when there is no cars inside the tunnel, and it had those crazy little turns in it. I imagined like I was inside of a snail's shell, just because the shape would be the same, I think. And when we successfully got home, I understood that it was one of the best days in my life.